3 weeks of nothing, 0 texts, 0 calls. Her social media shows her at brunch with friends, laughing like your 2 years together never happened. Meanwhile, you're analyzing her Instagram stories like they're ancient hieroglyphics, trying to decode what every smile means, whether that new haircut is about you, if she's really as happy as she looks. And somewhere in your gut, there's this sinking feeling telling you it's over. She's already forgotten you. Someone else is probably in the picture. You were just another chapter she's already closed. Stop right there. Because what you think is happening and what's actually happening are probably 2 completely different stories. Your brain is playing tricks on you right now, and I'm going to show you exactly how. More than that, I'm going to walk you through what silence actually means from a psychological standpoint. Because once you understand the mechanics of how people process breakups, everything changes. The story you're telling yourself, it's probably wrong, and that matters more than you realize. Let's start with something most people never consider, the difference between emotional shutdown and actually moving forward with life. From where you're standing, they look identical. She's out there doing her thing, not reaching out, seemingly unbothered, but those 2 internal experiences are galaxies apart. And confusing them is causing you unnecessary pain right now. Actual healing from a relationship takes months, sometimes years, depending on how deep things went. It's not linear. Some days are okay, others are brutal. There's processing, there's grief, there's anger, there's acceptance. It's a whole messy journey that doesn't look anything like what you're seeing on her feed. But shutting down emotionally, that happens in an instant. One moment you're connected, the next it's like a steel door slammed shut. And that immediate cutoff isn't proof of indifference. It's usually proof of the opposite. Stay with me here, because this is where most people get it backwards. Think about how you react when something scares you. Not startles you, but genuinely frightens you on a deep level. You don't sit with it. You don't analyze it. Your body reacts before your mind catches up. You create distance immediately. Now, apply that same principle to emotional vulnerability. Some people, when a relationship gets too intense, or when the pain of ending it feels too big to face, their nervous system kicks into protection mode. And protection mode looks cold, detached, like they never cared at all. But here's the catch. The people who care the least are usually the ones who can talk about it. They'll tell mutual friends what happened. They'll process it out loud. The person who ghosts completely, who blocks you everywhere and acts like you don't exist. That's often someone who cared so much that facing it directly feels impossible. Let me give you a concrete example. I knew this woman named Brianna who dated someone for about 18 months. Things got serious fast. He wanted to move in together, talk about future plans, the whole thing. And one Tuesday afternoon, she broke it off over text and blocked him on every platform within an hour. No explanation, no conversation, just gone. Her friends thought she was heartless. He was devastated, convinced she'd been faking the whole relationship. 6 months go by, then 8, then almost a year. And out of nowhere, she sends him this long message explaining that she'd been terrified. Not of him, but of how much she felt. That every day since the breakup, she'd thought about reaching out but couldn't let herself be that vulnerable again. That blocking him wasn't about moving on. It was about not falling apart every time she saw his name. Now, I'm not sharing this to make you sit around waiting for some movie moment where she comes back. That might happen, it might not. But what I need you to understand is that silence doesn't equal indifference. Sometimes silence equals overload. 3 types of quiet you need to recognize. The first type is what I call the emotional bunker. This is someone who deals with overwhelm by going into complete lockdown mode. They're not processing their feelings about you. They're sealing those feelings in concrete and pretending the whole thing didn't happen. You've probably seen this if you've ever watched someone compartmentalize trauma. They just function, go to work, see friends, smile on cue. Meanwhile, there's this whole unexploded bomb of emotion sitting in a locked room inside them. What's wild about this pattern is that the intensity of the lockdown often matches the intensity of what they felt. A casual relationship that didn't work out, they'll probably text you sometime, talk it through, stay cordial. But the relationship that got under their skin, that made them feel things they weren't prepared for, That's the one they have to completely erase to keep functioning. And from the outside, you interpret that as, I meant nothing, when really it might mean you meant everything, and that was too much to handle. So, what's your move here? First, you've got to stop monitoring her digital footprint like it's giving you accurate information. Because it's not. It's a curated performance. Maybe she's performing for herself, trying to convince herself she's fine. Maybe she's performing for you, wanting you to think she's fine. Either way, it's theater. The real emotional work is happening backstage, in places you can't see. Checking her stories 17 times a day isn't giving you insight. It's feeding your anxiety. The second type is what I call the genuine rebuilder. This person isn't shutting down. They're actually doing the hard work of moving through a breakup in a healthy way. They're feeling their feelings, processing, talking to their therapist or their close friends, creating genuine distance because they need it to heal, not because they're avoiding their emotions. How do you spot the difference? Consistency and patterns. A genuine rebuilder doesn't play games. They're not breadcrumbing you with random late-night likes on your photos from 3 years ago. They're not watching every single story you post while refusing to respond to your messages. They set a boundary and stick to it because they're protecting their own healing process. Their social media might actually go quiet for stretches because they're living their actual life, not performing a version of it for an audience. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If this is what's happening, trying to interrupt that process isn't romantic. It's selfish. Because you're prioritizing your need for closure or reconciliation over their need for space. That doesn't mean they made the right decision in ending things. It doesn't mean they won't regret it later. But it does mean that respecting their boundary is the only ethical move. So what do? You give them the space they asked for while you work on your own stuff. Not as some strategic play to make them miss you more, but because that's what mature people do. You look at your own attachment patterns. You figure out why the silence triggers you so hard. You become someone who could show up differently in a relationship the second time around. And if they eventually reach out, you're ready. If they don't, you've still grown. That's not losing. That's winning differently. The third pattern is what I call the pendulum phase. This is someone who swung hard in one direction but hasn't found equilibrium yet. They ran from the intensity of what you had, and right now they're in full flight mode. Distance feels safe. Independence feels necessary. They're probably telling themselves and everyone else that this was the right call, that they feel relieved, that they're finally free. But here's what's happening under the surface. They haven't actually processed where they landed. They reacted to overwhelmed by creating distance, but they haven't examined whether that distance is where they actually want to be long term. Think about it like this. Imagine you're in an argument with someone and it gets heated, so you storm out. In that moment, leaving feels absolutely right. Your body is flooded with adrenaline. Everything in you says, get out. But 2 hours later, when you've calmed down, you start questioning. Did I overreact? Should I have stayed and talked it through? What did I just walk away from? That's the pendulum starting its swing back. Not all the way back usually, but back towards center. And with breakups, that swing can take weeks or months, depending on how long they need to calm their nervous system down. Now pay attention, because this is crucial. You cannot force that pendulum to swing faster. Every time you reach out, every time you try to convince them, every time you show up in their space, you're reinforcing the exact thing they ran from: intensity, pressure, overwhelm. You're proving to them that distance was the right choice. So, what's the actual move? You create the conditions for natural reconsideration. That means you're not chasing, but you're also not disappearing from existence entirely. You're living your life in a way that's visible, but not performative. You're showing growth through your actions, not your words. You're becoming someone who makes them think, wait, maybe I judged that situation wrong, without you having to say a single thing. The ghost in the room. There's this psychological phenomenon that happens after breakups that nobody talks about. When you were together, you occupied space in her life. Physical space when you were around. Mental space when you weren't. Emotional space in how she processed her day, her decisions, her experiences. Now you're gone, and that creates a void. At first, if she's the one who ended things, that void feels like freedom. She can finally breathe without the weight of the relationship. She can make choices without considering you. she can exist independently again. And that initial phase feels validating, like proof she made the right call. But over time, something shifts. That empty space doesn't stay empty. It fills up with echoes, memories of inside jokes, comparisons to new people she meets who don't quite measure up. Little moments throughout her day where her brain automatically goes to share something with you before remembering you're not there anymore. You become a phantom presence, haunting the routines and rhythms you used to share. Have you ever moved to a new place and for weeks afterward, you keep reaching for light switches where they used to be? Your body remembers the old pattern even though the environment changed. That's muscle memory. Emotional muscle memory works the same way. She's moving through her life, and there are all these tiny moments where her feelings reach for you, before her conscious mind remembers you're gone. That reaching into empty space, that realization over and over that you're not there, that's what creates reconsideration over time, but only if you're not filling that space with desperate attempts to stay relevant. The moment you start texting her at odd hours or commenting on her posts or getting mutual friends to pass along messages, you stop being a phantom presence. You become a real, current problem she needs to keep avoiding. What she's actually watching. Here's something happening right now that you're probably not aware of. Even if she's not directly checking your social media, information travels. Friends mention you in passing. Your name comes up in conversation. Someone saw you somewhere, and she's collecting data points about who you are in her absence. Are you spiraling? Are you bitter? Are you trying to make her jealous with rebound situations? Are you respecting the space she asked for? Each piece of information either validates her decision to leave or makes her question it. And here's what trips most people up. The behavior that would work on you doesn't work on her. If you're anxiously attached, you want pursuit and reassurance. But if she leans avoidant, those exact things push her further into her shell. What actually creates curiosity is unexpected evolution. She expects you to chase. She expects you to be a mess. She expects you to either be desperate or resentful. What she doesn't expect is for you to genuinely change, to take the relationship ending as information rather than rejection, to work on the patterns that made things difficult, to become more secure in yourself. So your move isn't to perform growth for her benefit, it's to actually grow, to share moments of genuine insight or development in ways that feel authentic. Not, "Look how much better I am without you," posts. But maybe you're reading something that's shifting your perspective, or you picked up a skill you'd been putting off, or you had a realization about yourself that you share honestly. Subtle signals that you're not the same person she left without making it about her at all. The question you should actually be asking. Right now you're fixated on, has she moved on? But that's the wrong question because it's not one you can answer, and obsessing over it keeps you stuck. The question that actually serves you is this: am I building a life I'm proud of regardless of what she's doing? Because here's the reality check you need. There's no standard timeline for this. Some people realize they made a mistake in a month. Others take a year or more. Some never come back around. And you have zero control over which category she falls into. Zero. You can control your behavior. You can control your growth. You can control how you spend your days. But her internal process, that's hers. So, are you really going to put your entire life on pause waiting for someone else to validate you by changing their mind? That's not hope. That's a self-imposed prison sentence. The version of you she walked away from isn't the version that gets another shot anyway. If there's ever going to be a second chance at this, it'll be with the version of you that took the breakup seriously, that looked at what didn't work and actually addressed it, that became more emotionally secure, more self-aware, better at communication, more capable of handling conflict. Not for her, for you. And maybe that version is attractive enough that she reconsiders. Maybe it's not. But either way, you're free, because you're no longer trapped in this painful loop of checking her social media and torturing yourself with questions you can't answer. The real work stop, trying to figure out what's happening in her head, and start getting curious about what's happening in yours. Why did her pulling away trigger such intense anxiety in you? What made you need her validation so badly that you're willing to suffer through this uncertainty? What patterns from your past relationships or even your childhood are playing out right here? Those questions change your life. Not, Does she still think about me? But why do I need her to think about me this much? Not, is she coming back? But what would I need to be different in myself to make any relationship work better? You deserve more than this waiting game, more than analyzing someone's Instagram like it's a puzzle to solve. And the moment you genuinely believe that, the moment you start acting like someone who knows their value isn't dependent on her response, everything shifts internally. Sometimes she notices that shift, sometimes she doesn't, but you're liberated either way. That's what this is really about. Not getting her back, getting yourself back, reclaiming the mental and emotional energy you're pouring into someone who isn't currently choosing you, and redirecting it toward becoming someone you're genuinely proud to be. Maybe she's moved on. Maybe she hasn't. Maybe she's confused. Maybe she's certain. You can't know, and honestly, it doesn't matter as much as you think it does. What matters is whether you're going to stay stuck in this painful uncertainty or decide that your life moves forward either way. That's your power. That's always been your power, and it's time you started using it.